It wasn't exactly love at first sight, but it was close. When Janet Van Dyne first met Hank Pym, she was searching for answers, not romance. Her father, Vernon Van Dyne, was a well-respected scientist in his own right, obsessive, and, as it turned out, doomed by his pursuit of otherworldly knowledge. When his latest project unlocked forces beyond human comprehension, tragedy struck, leaving Janet bereaved and desperate. She turned, in her uncertainty, to the one man she believed could help, her father's colleague, Dr. Henry Hank Pym. At the time, Hank was already something of a legend in scientific circles, the man who had isolated the mysterious Pym particles, who had shrunk himself down to Onn size, and lived to tell the tale. Hank was equal parts eccentric, genius, and tragic figure. His first wife, Maria, had died years prior under violent circumstances, leaving him withdrawn, obsessive, and buried in his work. It's in this context, a missing father, a tormented scientist, that Janet and Hank's story begins. Janet, mourning but determined, recruited Hank to help her avenge her father's death. It was less about justice, more about not feeling powerless. Hank, for his part, saw something of himself in Janet, a raw wound, intelligence pressed into action by grief. Their partnership, at first, was entirely practical to sharp minds, chasing down the unnatural menace that had killed her father. But this was science adventure, after all. The pursuit of the alien creature that had killed Vernon Van Dyne drew them close, bound by adrenaline and mutual need. Janet insisted on being more than a spectator. She wanted to put herself on the front lines. It was Hank who, combining his Pym particle technology with Janet's own DNA, gave her powers of her own, ability to shrink, sprout wings, and fire bioelectric stings. Janet became the Wasp. It wasn't long before their emotional partnership caught up with their professional one. Their early days as heroes were turbulent but thrilling. Together, as Ant-Man and the Wasp, Hank and Janet not only avenged her father, but found, in each other, some measure of healing. The trauma of loss, the shared sense of duty, these things became the scaffolding of their relationship. The lines between grief, gratitude, and love blurred. It happens sometimes. The air hangs heavy with tension. Burdens are shared and become lighter. Vulnerabilities are exposed. And suddenly, things change. Hank asked Janet to marry him in the aftermath of their first run of adventures together. Some would argue it was a decision born of gratitude, even codependence, as much as affection. They'd both been running from their pain in different ways. Janet, energetic and spontaneous, brought Hank's attention back from abstraction, rooting him in the present. Hank, methodical and cautious, provided Janet with stability and a sense of direction. Their wedding wasn't a grand public affair. In the comics, they first married during the events of Avengers number 60, published in 1969. But the narrative, even then, was charged with subtext and uncertain motivations. At the time, Janet wanted to solidify their relationship in the eyes of their peers. Hank, in the midst of a mental breakdown and wrestling with another of his many identities, the sometimes unstable Yellowjacket, proposed, almost impulsively. In one of comics' more notorious storylines, he proposed to Janet not as Hank Pym, but as Yellowjacket, and Janet, suspecting the truth, but wanting Hank all the same, agreed. Why did they marry? The short answer, for love, but also for comfort, healing, and I deny a cocktail of motivations as complicated as the people involved. Janet craved connection. She'd lost her father and feared losing those she cared about. Hank was a man haunted by guilt and doubt, who longed for understanding. Their marriage was, in many ways, an attempt by both of them to anchor themselves, her to feel less alone, him to feel more human. It's worth noting that even their friends doubted the marriage would last. The Avengers, invited to what seemed a hastily arranged wedding, questioned if it was the right thing to do. But in that moment, neither Janet nor Hank were looking for approval. They were looking for a refugee way to reclaim control in lives that so often spun beyond it. And so, Janet and Hank's first marriage began, not with fanfare, but with uncertainty, fragile hope, and that distinct kind of courage it takes to move forward despite nagging doubts. It wouldn't be the last time their paths would cross so intimately, nor would it be the last time they'd have to reckon with what brought them together in the first place. But in that moment, as the vows were exchanged, and the world watched with wary eyes, both believed, however briefly, that together might mean safer, happier, possible, even if, in the world of superheroes, nothing ever stays simple for long.